The radio crackled, distorted and static-ridden, barely reaching Captain Kyle Royce's ears over the roar of gunfire and explosions. His boots pounded against the cracked asphalt of the war-torn cityscape. The air smelled like ash and burnt metal, the remnants of humanity's final stand scattered around him in the form of overturned vehicles and shattered windows. The streets were littered with bodies, both human and alien. The enemy was relentless. The Zarnak had launched their assault hours ago, and there was no sign of them slowing down. "Captain Royce!" a voice shouted from behind, and Kyle spun, instinctively reaching for his weapon. His eyes locked onto Sergeant Lena Hargrove, breathless as she ran toward him. "Intel's in, sir," she said. "Zarnak forces are split. We've got a chance to hit them where it hurts." Kyle's jaw tightened as he scanned the broken landscape. The Zarnak were fierce, tactical, but their arrogance often led them to underestimate their prey. Humans. That's what they called us, like we were a subjugated species to be eradicated. But if there was one thing humanity excelled at, it was turning the tables in a fight, even when the odds were against them. He nodded, already planning their next move. "Where's the target?" "North end of the city," Lena said, pointing toward the twisted remains of a once thriving block of shops and housing. "They've set up a command post there, and we've got a window to strike. If we hit them hard, we can destabilize their command, maybe even take down their leader." Kyle's eyes narrowed. "We need a distraction. I'll take a small team. You're in charge of setting it up." Lena hesitated, but her expression was resolute. "Understood. I'll keep the lines open for updates." Kyle turned and sprinted toward the designated extraction point, the sound of his team following behind him like a dark chorus. They moved with purpose, silent and deadly. Every step was calculated, no room for mistakes. Not now. They didn't have the luxury of time. The closer they got to the target, the heavier the tension in Kyle's chest grew. He could feel it in his bones. Something wasn't right. "Eyes sharp," he said to his team as they approached the ruins. "We're going in quiet. No room for error. Let's make it clean." They reached a crumbled building near the north end of the city, crouching behind the debris for cover. From there, they had a clear view of the Zarnak's position. The alien forces were concentrated around a reinforced structure, the thick metallic walls gleaming ominously in the harsh light. Guards were posted, but there was an opening, a narrow alleyway they could use to get close undetected. Lena's voice came through the comms, *. "Teams in position. You're clear to move." *. Kyle gave the signal, and the team began to advance, each member moving like shadows in the night. The plan was simple: infiltrate, neutralize key personnel, and then extract. It had worked 1,000 times before. As they neared the target, Kyle's senses went on high alert. He could feel the hairs on the back of his neck stand on end. Something was wrong. His instincts screamed at him to turn back, to abort the mission. He shook it off. Focus, Royce. You've been in worse situations. A sudden noise, like a low growl, interrupted his thoughts. Kyle whipped around, his weapon raised. A figure emerged from the shadows, moving at lightning speed, a Zarnak soldier. But this one was different. Taller, more formidable, its armor more refined, and its eyes glowing red with an unnerving intensity. It wasn't just a soldier. It was an officer. Without thinking, Kyle fired. The shot hit its mark, but the creature barely flinched. It snarled, drawing a massive blade from its back. "Ambush!" Kyle shouted into the comms. His team opened fire, but the alien was already moving, faster than they could react. It charged forward, slashing with its blade, knocking one of his men to the ground. "Fall back!" Kyle ordered, pulling his injured soldier to his feet. The fight was no longer going according to plan. They were exposed now, no longer able to stay hidden. The Zarnak had seen them, and the whole city was about to come down on their heads. The alien officer bared its teeth, a terrifying grin crossing its face. It was toying with them. "Damn it," Kyle muttered. "Plan B. Regroup and retreat to the alley. We need an exit strategy, now." As his team scrambled, Kyle's mind raced. The mission had failed. No, worse, it had been sabotaged. This wasn't a standard ambush. It was too coordinated. Then it hit him. A betrayal. There was a mole. Someone within their ranks had tipped the Zarnak off. That was the only explanation. "Keep moving!" Kyle barked as they sprinted toward the alley. The Zarnak were hot on their heels, but Kyle's mind was elsewhere. Who could it be? Who had betrayed them? The traitor had to be someone close, someone with access to their plans. They reached the alley, but the Zarnak were closing in, cutting off their escape routes. Kyle's hand clenched around his weapon, his heart pounding. It wasn't over yet. They had one last chance. He signaled to his team. "Split up. We create chaos. I'll make sure the traitor pays." They scattered, moving in different directions, engaging the Zarnak forces. Kyle sprinted ahead, weaving between the ruins, heading toward the command structure. He had to take it down. They could still cripple their operations, even if they couldn't win this fight. Suddenly his comms lit up again. "Captain Royce, this is Lena. We've got a problem." "What's happening?" Kyle snapped, feeling the weight of the situation pressing down on him. "It's the commander. He's the one who sold us out. We've got confirmation from our intel. He's on his way to meet the Zarnak. He's planning to hand us over." Kyle's breath caught in his throat. The betrayal he'd feared had come to pass. "Kill him," Kyle said, his voice cold. "And get out. Don't leave anyone behind." But as the words left his mouth, another explosion rocked the city. This one was much closer, sending debris and shrapnel flying through the air. Kyle's team scattered, and his vision blurred as the ground beneath him shifted, ready to give way. He knew the Zarnak would come again. They always did. But this time, they had made a deadly mistake. Because they hadn't accounted for one thing. Humans didn't break. Not when it mattered most. Kyle's hands shook as he crawled toward cover. The fight was far from over, and as the Zarnak closed in, he knew one thing for sure. This wasn't just about survival anymore. It was personal. The base was a shell of its former self, half buried beneath layers of debris and sand, but still standing. The walls, scarred by explosions and countless battles, creaked under the weight of the ongoing war. Inside, it felt like everything was on edge. Tension had settled in like a thick fog, and even the most battle-hardened soldiers seemed to be walking on thin ice. Kyle Royce moved through the base's dimly lit halls, his boots making no sound against the cracked floor. Every corner he turned felt like it might hold something new, something worse. The ambush earlier had changed everything. The Zarnak had pushed them harder than ever before, and now, with their escape route compromised and the mole exposed, Kyle knew they couldn't afford any more missteps. He arrived at the war room, where Lena Hargrove was pacing in front of a holographic map of the city. Her face, usually composed and ready for battle, was now marked with exhaustion, a sense of urgency that had never been there before. Her eyes flickered to Kyle as he entered. "Captain," she greeted, but there was no formality in her tone, just raw worry. "We need to talk." Kyle didn't answer right away. Instead, he moved toward the map, his eyes scanning it quickly. The city was on fire, its roads carved up by Zarnak patrols, the command post still heavily fortified. "We have the intel on the mole. It's Commander Elias. He sold us out, Royce," Lena said bluntly, her voice tight with the weight of the accusation. Kyle's chest tightened. He'd suspected, but hearing it confirmed made it real. "Elias. I should have seen it sooner." "You trusted him," Lena said, as if reading his mind. She walked up to him, her boots clicking sharply on the floor. "We all did. But it doesn't matter now. He's in communication with the Zarnak. He's their inside man." Kyle clenched his jaw, fists tight. His mind flashed back to their earlier meetings, to the mission plans Elias had been a part of. He had been there, alongside them, making decisions. The traitor had been at the very heart of everything. "Where is he now?" Kyle asked, his voice low. "He's in the command center," Lena answered. He's making his way to the underground bunkers, where they're planning to launch the next phase of their assault. I don't know how much longer we have before he hands us over completely. Kyle's eyes narrowed. Elias might have sold them out, but he hadn't completely shattered their resolve. It was time to act, swiftly. The clock was ticking, and Kyle wasn't about to wait around for the Zarnak to finish what they had started. We'll stop him. No, Kyle said, his voice gaining strength. How many troops are in the command center? Lena activated a new holographic display, showing the command center's layout. About 30 Zarnak soldiers. He's protected. But if we act fast, we might have a shot at taking him down before he finishes whatever deal he's making. Kyle's mind clicked into motion, running the numbers, analyzing the risk. 30 Zarnak soldiers wouldn't be a problem. He had a plan, a dangerous one, but it was their only shot. Prepare a strike team, he ordered. We'll hit them hard. But no guns until we're inside. We need to get close enough to deal with Elias and the Zarnak without alerting the rest of their forces. Lena nodded, her expression hardening. Understood. I'll assemble the team. Before she could leave, Kyle caught her arm, pulling her aside. Lena. This is personal. The betrayal cuts deeper than just a mission. We need to stay sharp. Don't let emotions cloud your judgment. Lena met his gaze, her eyes steely. I'll do what needs to be done. We all will. Kyle nodded and turned away, heading toward the armory. The plan was simple: infiltrate the command center, neutralize Elias and his Zarnak allies, and prevent them from calling in reinforcements. It was a high-risk, high-reward move, but humanity didn't have the luxury of playing it safe anymore. The cold air of the armory hit him like a slap to the face. Rows upon rows of weapons gleamed under the harsh fluorescent lights. Kyle walked past them, selecting the tools of the trade: a standard-issue rifle, a combat knife, and explosives. He wasn't here to play games. Back in the war room, Lena had assembled the team, 6 soldiers, all veterans of the conflict, faces grim but ready. Kyle checked the team's gear, ensuring every detail was covered. We move out in 10. He said, meeting each of their eyes. We're hitting the command center, taking down Elias, and ending this once and for all. The team nodded, no words needed. Their expressions said it all: they were ready. The command center was located beneath a large, fortified bunker, tucked away in the center of a sprawling industrial complex. Kyle's team made their way through the darkened streets, avoiding Zarnak patrols and using the wreckage of the city to stay hidden. The tension in the air was thick, every step calculated and deliberate. As they reached the outer perimeter of the command center, Kyle motioned for the team to split up. They'd need to breach the main entrance without alerting the guards inside. Time was running out. A small, controlled explosion sent the door of the command center flying open. The team moved in, weapons drawn but kept low. They were ghosts, silent, unseen, and deadly. Kyle's heart was steady, his mind focused entirely on the mission. Inside, the air was thick with the hum of alien technology, its sterile, metallic scent filling his nostrils. They moved quickly, clearing rooms as they went. No Zarnak in sight. Until they reached the inner chamber. Kyle stopped at the entrance, his eyes scanning the room. There, standing near a holographic display, was Elias. His back was turned, unaware of their presence. The Zarnak officer at his side seemed agitated, eyes darting nervously. Kyle stepped forward, his voice a quiet growl. Elias. The commander turned slowly, his eyes narrowing. Recognition flashed across his face, but there was no surprise. No regret. He'd known this moment was coming. I see you found me, Elias said, his tone almost satisfied. You've been too long in the dark, Royce. The Zarnak were always going to win. You just didn't realize it. Kyle's fingers tightened around his rifle, but he didn't raise it. You sold us out, Elias. You've sealed your fate. Elias laughed softly. The fate of humanity was sealed the moment we were too weak to fight back. I'm just ensuring survival, for those who can adapt. Before Kyle could respond, the Zarnak officer lunged toward him. Kyle's reflexes kicked in, and in a split second, he fired. The alien's body dropped, and the room went still. Elias stood motionless, his eyes cold. "You've made a mistake," he said quietly. "This isn't over." Kyle's eyes locked onto Elias's. The betrayal was personal, but now, it was also a matter of survival. With a steady hand, he moved forward. The fight wasn't over. Not by a long shot. The room fell silent after the Zarnak officer's body hit the ground. For a heartbeat, Kyle stood there, chest rising and falling, his rifle still aimed at the fallen alien. The air was thick with tension, every breath seeming louder in the stillness. Elias had yet to move, his eyes fixed on the corpse with a cold detachment. He knew his time was running out. Kyle's fingers flexed around the rifle. "You were always a coward, Elias," he said, his voice low but steady. "Hiding behind your alien allies, believing they would save you." Elias gave a humorless smile, stepping back to the console as if nothing had happened. "You're wrong, Royce. The Zarnak are the future. Humanity is weak, a dying race clinging to its outdated ideals. I simply chose the path that would let me survive." The words hit Kyle like a punch to the gut, but he didn't flinch. Instead, his grip tightened on the rifle, the weight of everything they'd lost pressing on him. Humanity was on the brink of collapse, and here was the man who had helped seal their fate, too selfish to even see the cost. "Survive?" Kyle's voice rose, edged with anger. "At what cost? You're a traitor to your own people. You let them fall for the sake of, what? Power?" Elias met his gaze, his face impassive. "Power is the only thing that matters in this universe. You should have realized that by now, Royce. The Zarnak offered me a chance to live when your precious resistance was doomed to fail. And I took it." The words were like poison. Kyle's heart pounded, a mixture of rage and sorrow threatening to overwhelm him. But there was no room for feelings now. The mission wasn't over. The future of humanity wasn't over. "That's where you're wrong," Kyle said, his voice dropping to a low, menacing growl. "You never understood what humanity is capable of. We fight. We always fight, no matter the odds. Even when we're losing, we push forward." The room seemed to pulse with the weight of his words, the air growing heavy as Elias remained motionless, still fixated on the console. The traitor was close, but Kyle wasn't finished. There was more to be done, and Elias was about to learn just how wrong he was about humanity. "You should have surrendered when you had the chance," Kyle continued, stepping forward slowly, his eyes locked on Elias. "The Zarnak may have you now, but we're not done yet. This fight is ours." Elias finally turned to face him, his smirk never faltering. "You think the Zarnak will let you win? They'll destroy everything you fought for, Royce. You're just one man in a dying cause." Kyle's grip on his rifle never wavered. "Then let me show you why they've underestimated us." He fired. The shot rang out, slicing through the air, but it wasn't aimed at Elias. Instead, the bullet struck the console, sparking a shower of sparks and causing the room to shudder. The entire building groaned in response, as if echoing Kyle's defiance. Elias's eyes widened in shock as the system flickered. "What did you do?" "You just handed us the key to our survival," Kyle said, his tone sharp. "This facility holds the data we need to break the Zarnak's command network. And now, it's going up in flames." He turned toward his team, signaling them to move in. "Get the data. We're not leaving without it." Lena Hargrove, her face set in a grim line, stepped forward with a team of soldiers. The Zarnak forces outside hadn't yet realized the tide was turning, but it wouldn't be long before they did. The countdown was already ticking in Kyle's mind. The enemy would be on them in minutes, but for the first time in what felt like forever, he could feel a glimmer of hope. The team moved swiftly, gathering critical data from the now failing system. Kyle didn't take his eyes off Elias, who was still standing at the console, eyes wild with realization. The traitor had seen the light flicker out. He had realized, in that instant, that he was no longer in control. "You've made a mistake, Royce," Elias spat, his voice shaking with fury. This is only the beginning. The Zarnak will obliterate you all. You've sealed your fate. Kyle's gaze never wavered. Maybe, but we still have a chance. You never understood the one thing the Zarnak missed. Humanity's not afraid to die. It's the reason we're still standing. Elias took a step forward, his hands shaking, as though debating whether to strike. You're a fool. Before he could take another step, the sound of approaching Zarnak footsteps echoed through the corridor. The team froze for a split second, the weight of the situation crashing down on them. They'd run out of time. Move! Kyle barked, rushing toward the exit, pulling his team with him. Lena and the others didn't hesitate, following in sync, but Elias remained behind, staring at the crumbling control center. We have to go, Elias! Kyle shouted over his shoulder. Your people are done. You're done. But Elias didn't respond. His eyes were locked on the door, his mind seemingly trapped in the final moments of his betrayal. In that second, everything Kyle had felt, the loss, the rage, the sorrow, all merged into a single, sharp emotion. Elias had betrayed humanity, but humanity had found a way forward. They would fight, they would survive, and they would rebuild. The building trembled once again, signaling the end was near. Kyle didn't look back. He knew what had to be done. As the team emerged into the war-torn streets, the outside world came into view, the smoldering ruins of a city that had once been a symbol of life and prosperity, now a hollow shell of itself. But Kyle wasn't thinking about what had been lost. He was thinking about what could still be won. Behind him, the facility collapsed in on itself, its data now in the hands of the resistance. It was a small victory, but it was enough. Ready to move out? Lena called, her voice steady despite the chaos around them. The Zarnak won't be far behind. Kyle nodded. The fight was far from over, but for the first time in a long while, there was something stronger than despair. There was hope. Let's go, he said, his voice hard. We have work to do. And with that, they moved forward, ready to face whatever came next. The sun was setting over the broken city, casting an orange glow over the ruins. The quiet was deafening in its finality, but Kyle Royce's mind was far from peaceful. He stood at the edge of a crumbled building, watching the smoke rise in the distance from the Zarnak stronghold, where the resistance had made its last stand. The plan had succeeded. The Zarnak's command was disrupted, their leadership in disarray. But it had come at a cost. Lena Hargrove appeared beside him, her face drawn with exhaustion, but her eyes still held that fierce fire. You did it, she said softly, her voice carrying the weight of their shared struggle. Kyle nodded, his gaze fixed on the horizon. We did it. But it won't be enough. The night before had been chaos. They'd fought tooth and nail, outsmarted and outgunned the Zarnak, but the victory hadn't come without sacrifice. The team had lost 2 men, and Kyle's own body was battered from the relentless battles. Blood still stained his uniform, but there were other stains, grief, loss, and a sense of unfinished business. The true enemy wasn't gone, not by a long shot. We've only delayed the inevitable, Kyle continued. The Zarnak might be wounded, but they'll regroup. We have to keep pushing. Lena's hand settled on his shoulder, a rare moment of reassurance. We will. You've given us a chance. That's all we need. Kyle looked at her, forcing a small, bitter smile. Chance isn't enough. We need more. He turned back to face the destroyed city, each building a monument to their failure. Humanity's last stand had come down to this, a single, fleeting victory. But as he stared at the crumbling skyline, a gnawing feeling tugged at him. Something didn't add up. They'd crippled the Zarnak forces for now, but there was a larger, more insidious game at play. His thoughts were interrupted by a voice crackling through his calms. Captain Royce? Came the voice of Major Stevens, his tone urgent. We've got a situation. Kyle straightened, his instincts kicking in. What's happened? We've intercepted a transmission. It's from Zarnak Command. Kyle felt his heart skip a beat. What did they say? They've got something bigger than we thought, sir. Stevens continued. Something's in motion. They've just initiated the final phase. Final phase? Kyle repeated, his mind working furiously. What could be worse than the destruction they had already caused? What's their target? There was a brief pause, and then Stevens spoke again, his voice more grave. Earth. Kyle felt his stomach drop. He had been too focused on the immediate battle, too blind to see the bigger picture. The Zarnak weren't just trying to control the galaxy, they were trying to annihilate humanity completely. Earth, the cradle of their civilization, was the final prize. And they were about to make it their graveyard. Damn it! Kyle muttered under his breath. He turned to Lena. We've got one last chance. We can't let them launch whatever they've got in store for Earth. Get the team. We're going in. Lena nodded, her expression hardening with resolve. What's the plan? We hit their command center one last time. We'll find out what this final phase is, and we'll shut it down. If we don't, Earth will be nothing but a memory. The journey to the Zarnak command was grueling. The city, now a war zone, was filled with the remains of fallen soldiers and broken machinery. The Zarnak forces were still regrouping, but they were focused on the horizon, unaware that the remnants of humanity were coming for them. Kyle led the charge, moving through the shadows of the broken city, his mind racing with every step. The Zarnak had underestimated humanity before, but now they would learn that the price of underestimating them had grown higher than they could imagine. The team reached the Zarnak's final command post, hidden beneath layers of reinforced steel and alien technology. They breached the outer perimeter with minimal resistance, but the closer they got to the heart of the facility, the heavier the air became. Kyle's instincts told him something was wrong. The Zarnak weren't scrambling for control. They were preparing for something. Lena's voice broke through his thoughts. We're almost there, Captain. Stay sharp. They moved quickly, bypassing alien security measures, until they finally reached the control room. Inside, rows of glowing screens and holographic displays filled the space. Zarnak engineers scrambled to input data, but the moment they saw the humans, they raised their weapons. Kyle didn't hesitate. He ordered his team to move in and take them out. The Zarnak soldiers fell one by one, but Kyle wasn't paying attention to them. He focused on the central terminal, a massive, pulsating core of energy. As his fingers flew over the keys, the truth began to unfold before him. What the hell? Kyle whispered to himself. Lena moved up beside him. What's going on? Kyle scanned the screen, his eyes wide with disbelief. This isn't just a command center. This is a planetary weapon. The Zarnak are going to use it too. The ground beneath them shuddered violently, cutting him off. The walls trembled as the machine roared to life, and then everything went black. Kyle jolted awake on the cold floor, his body aching, his vision blurry. His heart was pounding in his chest. The explosion had knocked him unconscious, but the mission wasn't over. He pushed himself up, his mind still trying to process what had happened. The Zarnak had activated a device, something capable of destroying Earth, not just conquering it. He had to stop it. There was no choice. Lena? Kyle called, his voice hoarse. He stumbled to his feet, eyes scanning the ruined room. Lena, report. A voice came through his comms, faint but steady. We're alive, Captain. Barely. The device. I know, Kyle interrupted. We've got to stop it. We don't have much time. Lena's voice was grim. It's too late. The countdown's already started. The device is launching in less than 15 minutes. Kyle's eyes narrowed. He wasn't going to let it happen. Not after everything they had been through. He sprinted toward the core, his fingers flying over the terminal. There was a series of complex inputs, but with his mind clear and his hands steady, he initiated a command to disable the weapon. The terminal blinked in response, then went dark. Silence. For a moment, Kyle thought they'd failed. Then, the lights flared back to life. A message appeared on the screen, a final transmission from the Zarnak. Asterisk. You cannot stop us. Earth will burn, and your species will become dust. The final phase is only the beginning. We shall rise again. Asterisk. Kyle's hand clenched into a fist. He had done it. The weapon was deactivated, Earth had been saved, but at a cost. He turned to Lena, a look of determination etched on his face. It's over. For now. But we'll keep fighting. We always do. As they made their way out of the Zarnak stronghold, Kyle realized the truth. This war was far from over, but humanity's fire had not been extinguished. And as long as they had breath in their lungs, they would never stop fighting.